You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen with the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you, rolling through game week, first time around 2025 edition. And first time we got to hear from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire, a pair of coordinators, other Red Raider dignitaries to kick off the week as they meet with the media in Lubbock. And I want to dive into some thoughts from Coach McGuire on today's episode. We'll get to one thing he's talking about, including an individual we've touched on this offseason that's shaken up a position in a way that I think is going to be must-see in week one. We'll get to John Curry and the goings-on at the star position coming up in just a moment. He also talks about Behren Morton, version 5.0, essentially. Fifth time around on campus for Behren Morton, fourth time around as far as a guy that's going to either be a starter or figure in heavily. And I'm interested to see now, hopefully feeling as good as he has in a long time, what it's looking like this time around. Coach McGuire tells us what he's seen rolling through fall camp. And I want to kick off our conversation, Chris, actually going back to last season as we look back to a week one experience, to use Coach McGuire's terminology, a heart attack variety of an experience, as obviously you were tested and then some in an overtime win against Abilene Christian. Coach McGuire was asked about what would you look back at, if anything, and adjust to try to avoid something similar this time around. And he also touched on something he's already seen this year with football that's played out that they're really trying to avoid, and probably a lot of other teams as well. Here's Joey McGuire.
One thing that will help is there's not going to be six starters on the offensive side of the ball that played for us. There's not the familiar. They're not as familiar with us and the attention that they had. But, if you watched this last week, Maverick had a great game at Western Kentucky, so he's a pretty good quarterback. And Rick Bowie, who was the offensive coordinator at Abilene Christian, is now the offense coordinator at Western Kentucky, and he had a really good game plan. So, a really good football team. Coach Patterson did a great job. Man, I think it's, honestly, I think it's every year is different with what kind of team you have. We have a very old veteran team, and I will be shocked if our older guys allow this team not to be ready to play Saturday. This is a player-led team, and we have allowed them to lead this and help me make sure that everything's going in the right direction. I met with Behren, Bryce, and Jacob this morning. Not about a lot of stuff, just checking on the locker room and talking about different times that we can meet and everything. But this group is an older group. There are some guys that really know how to prepare for the game. One of the biggest things week one is eliminating bad football. If you watched any games this last week, week 0, week 1, one of the biggest standouts is sloppy football. It usually always happens because we're the only level of football that doesn't get a preseason game and, your scrimmages and everything for some crazy reason. And so there's sloppy football. And what we're going to try to do is make sure we eliminate the bad football and the sloppy football on Saturday.
Every season's a new season, Chris, but it's probably something in the back of all Red Raiders' minds. Don't want a week one like last year's week one.
No. Ever again, or
eternity.
No mas. I mean, do we remember that ACU was thrown into the end zone there in overtime?
I do. Painfully, I do.
Yeah. That was a.
I don't get any beers in the booth anymore. So what a luxury for some of you in the stands. And maybe it blacked out or blotted out that portion of the memory. But you remember it.
I just remember, it's like time had stopped, and you're like thinking, there's a completed pass in the corner of this end zone right now. Life as I know it, at least for the foreseeable future in the coming days and weeks ahead, will be drastically different than the way I thought I was going to go.
We're in the business of rage clicks then.
Yeah.
Rage viewing.
Like the mood and just the vibe of the city, and just like, oh man, we wait all year for this, and then you've pulled the rug, and then maybe we would have had family members fight in the parking lot and everything like Kansas State did. I don't know. But survive in advance. That was probably a sign of things to come with your defense too. Yes. I think some pointed that out. Others, and we tried to point out some other things too. And but again, it's a starting point. I can just remember there's a variety of other games that have been like that. I just don't feel like that this Saturday. And I'm not trying to. I said on yesterday's show, you have permission to panic and all that stuff, because people were panicking there. And we were kind of like, okay, I get it, but you did win and all that. This is a different scenario in reality and on paper. And I know they have to play it out. I get it. This is just a different juggernaut that you're about to trot out there. I mean, Cody Campbell has said to national media folks, we feel like we have put together the most talent in the Big 12, and it's not even close. Joey McGuire has said this is a player-led team. This is an old team. There's just really no – and then here's the other main thing. The Golden Lions are just not going to be very good. That's just the harsh reality of it and the honest truth. They will be undersized. You've got twice as many coaches as they do, and personnel and all this stuff. And, this is how we're going to break the seal on the season. And so away we go. And so Joey is saying, let's be crisp. Let's not be too hyped up. Let's do the simple things. Let's not muff a punt. Let's not have pre-snap penalties. Let's not engage in these shenanigans here. There's no need to, really.
Veteran. Right? Let's be mature.
Yes.
An old football team.
Yes. yes. And so, and it, in all reality, it could take a drive or two to kind of feel your way, just because of I get because I think if you look back at the Farmageddon thing from Ireland, there was so many issues with the rain and the field and all that stuff, but in that environment, I just know, because from being down there, it feels different. There's an adrenaline thing that kids deal with too. Even some of your transfers are not going to have played in front of anywhere near this many people before. They know what is expected. They're excited to go hit somebody else and all that stuff. So you could get some of that, but at some point you want to settle in and just be clean. And let's let the second team be clean and the third team be clean, because ideally that's how this night would go.
Yes, ideally script it that way, and let's have it wrapped up nice and tidy well before the drone show is set to take place, because I'd really like to focus all attention and energies on the world's biggest drone show ever staged over a college football game. End of disclaimer. Chris, let's get to a story that begins on Saturday night and begins for the final time around, but we're hoping also in a certain way this is the trend that we've been looking for, and begins in a way that sets up the best time around for Behren Morton as a Red Raider quarterback. And I know we're all curious to see Mac Leftwich and this new offense and what is intended. We'll also see the reality of what's actually feasible or achievable as you roll through the year. I'll get to the Leftwich component in just a minute as we talk about aspirations toward explosiveness. But first, let's stick with number 2 and get back to Joey McGuire, talking about Behren Morton coming into this season and maybe what he's seen play out through spring and into fall that he feels like is different, or what this variety 2025 edition of Behren Morton looks like. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For only 24 hours, FanDuel is going to be giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP or eyeing a long shot division winner or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment with FanDuel Futures Day, August 26th. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only, August 26th. With FanDuel, play your game. What this variety 2025 edition of Behren Morton looks like compared to what we have most recently seen. Here's Coach McGuire.
I think the pace on his football is one of the biggest things. I mean, he did a good job last year, and I don't necessarily think he would tell you more than me about the movement and different things that he was having to do, how much it bothered him to do that. But like you just see a guy that's like, honestly, you see the guy that his ankle wasn't sprained in the first half against Oklahoma State, my very first year. That's what you see. You see a guy that is running around, feels great. The ball's coming out of his hand. He's got a really, really good feel for this offense. I think he and Mac have become really close and have great conversations of what we can do. And then he's also a guy that knows that he's got some really good football players around him and wants to take advantage of it.
If I were to ask you this question and force you to give me an answer, and it's a bit tricky with the opener that you've got, because if you had a tougher on paper opponent, a Power 4 type team, you may give me a different answer. However, we're talking about things that we want to see, that we will be keying on, all that stuff. But if I'm forced to give you a result, or you're forced to give me a result, would you rather see Morton 21 of 24 and like 4 touchdowns, 0 picks, or him kind of be like, okay, and then the defense just be locked down, like no points, no yards, no nothing? Or would you rather see maybe UAPB gets 13 points, 10 points, you bust a coverage or something? If you're forced to choose, which one are you coming away going, that was good, I'm not really worried about the other?
I think that's a difficult one to answer, because both of those things, or all the above, I would believe could certainly progress quickly as you get into the year. And one of those is based more so in the trenches to me, that being the performance of the defense. And I'm really invested on seeing that just ball out, to use an industry term. But a clean day for Behren Morton, wouldn't mind seeing that at all, Chris, because I think some confidence for him early on would certainly be a good thing. And that's breaking news for anybody. You'd like to have a little confidence for any son of a gun, top man to last man on the totem pole, I guess, in week 1. But to see him kind of really have that, I don't know, a tidiness to his game and not have had some close to turnovers, or certainly not a turnover, would be a sight for sore eyes. There's no doubt. But I guess I'm just so invested at this point in seeing the defense rage. I'm going to have to choose that one. What would your answer be?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to come up with some, if you're forced to choose, because that's probably 1 and 1A of the two dynamics. Yeah, you can pick individual players, or like you can get more specific as it relates to defense. But I mean, I think if we're being honest with ourselves, you really, how much number 2 is going to mean to you this season if you get to where you want to go. And you want to see, okay, he's a bit lighter, he's healthier. This is a bit of a different scheme, which may take a little bit too. We talked about this, the whole vertical choice game that they keep talking about, which it's like, okay, you do this, so I'm going to do that. And then I'm trying to read that if I'm the QB. And so sometimes there could be some hiccups there. But because I'm curious personally, how much does he trust his receivers on the 50-50 ball type stuff? Because I think he's going to be rearing back and throwing stuff deeper more often. And I don't think that they will view it as a 50-50 ball. I think they'll probably view it as an 80-20 type scenario. But how willing are you to heave some of those up, even if a guy's not necessarily open? Because Reggie and Caleb and Coy, they're all big enough to where they can go. So I am definitely keying on what that all looks like, not just this Saturday, but as we go here, because I think that's going to tell a large part of the story of the 2025 season.
No doubt. And I want to get to what is mandatory with what you're describing in just a minute, and the idea of scoring from far, which I'm into, that coming from Mac Leftwich. We'll get back to that in just a second. But Chris, I think maybe my answer is based in sort of some splitting hairs power ranking of things most vital to your championship contention. And I mean championship contention. And I'd probably say it is the defense at the very top of the list, that if it is not drastically different and to almost an elite level, you're not going to be in championship contention. To whereas I would say Behren Morton is incredibly important to that as well. But I would almost figure that if your defense was something to really account for, something, bordering on special, you could see a statistically, relatively modest season for a quarterback and still, I think, contend for some hardware if certain columns are the way you want them to be, like the one I already mentioned, say an interception or turnover column. But it's probably me splitting those kind of hairs of what I feel like has got to be most vital to actually putting you in the rarefied air of competing for a conference championship. And to me, number one on that list, I'm open to be persuaded, but so far it's just all about that defense being well beyond where it's been recently.
Yeah, you're putting way too much logic into this whole argument here, and it's ruining my question to you. But yeah, I don't and you're not ultimately learning big picture statements necessarily against UAPB. Sure. But to your point, yeah, I totally get it. I guess I just asked that just because we could play this card a variety of different ways, because I do think that you should be able to run the ball well. You should be able to do what you want schematically and be very vanilla in doing so, not have to pull out a lot of the wrinkles, win one-on-one matchups, all the things. But I am curious as to Beren's efficiency, game management, just how, and again, this is just because I know how important he's going to be this season. But defensively, I probably would go, okay, if you busted the coverage or you gave up some stuff against UAPB, what's Arizona State going to do to you in Tempe on a Saturday night? I don't know, but
sure.
But yeah, this is what we do in these early games. We all overreact, right? We all overreact.
Well, I'll wait to see what our reaction is like, and then grade it as over, appropriate, under. I don't know, but we may be right on the money with our reaction, Chris. You never know; we could be deadly accurate. We'll see, but I don't know if, from a quarterback standpoint, like where we're talking about the sloppiness in week one that Joey McGuire is describing, the last place you want to see that show up is at your quarterback's feet, with your guy and a dude like Behren Morton. So you definitely, regardless of like some prolific statistical day, you just don't want to see some, big meltdowns or breakdowns in communication, but that's maybe what you're most prone to in week one. Before we move on from the offense, go ahead.
Well, and that's the beauty. Okay, there's some negatives here, but that's the beauty of having a game like this to sort through it. Because Joey made it clear to point out, like, this is the only level of football that has no preseason game. Well, this one is, but it's like the third preseason game of the NFL. It's like eating a plate of broccoli. You just got to get through it and know that there's more fun, more meaningful times, on the horizon. But you just kind of got to get through it. And I'm not saying that this is like Saturday night will be like eating a plate of broccoli. But sometimes when you're presented with a vegetable that may not be your favorite, you're like, man, I just need to suck it up and down it. It's medicine, and then you can bring me my dessert later and be good. But that's kind of, to get to Utah and get to meaningful football, you're going to have to get through these games, but you've got to use these to eliminate some of the hiccups, the personnel groups, the communication, the timing, the stuff. And you should be afforded that luxury with these first two games. Not everybody can always say that. And you may have thought that going into last year, and Abilene Christian had other ideas. So, that's the beauty of sports.
I think the vegetable analogy works. There will be a timer. It's like mom's already telling you got this long till dad comes home, and you know what's happening then. You better get that broccoli down. I enjoy broccoli, so that wouldn't have been any problem for me. Some other varieties, yeah.
Are you a cauliflower guy?
I'm down. Yeah. I mean, you pretty much put it in a pile, steam it and whatnot, or, I'm just rolling in it and like, it's fine.
This is why you look like you do. And I look like I do. I mean, I can do asparagus. I can do green beans. I can do okra. I mean, I could even do some Brussels sprouts. But I'll never forget the timer analogy. I can never forget sitting on, I think it was on Oakton Road in Fort Worth, Texas, is a little tyke, and everybody left the table. I got my glass of milk, and I think I had some broccoli sitting there, and I thought there was nowhere to really hide it, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to take this broccoli and wad it up in my napkin and go hide it in the corner, in plain sight, mind you. I mean, it's just in plain sight. And then I walked in there, drank my milk. I was like, okay, I'm good to go. Well, you got to remember to go back and get the broccoli and kind of like do away with it so you don't get discovered. But I was clear for about an hour 10. And then
you were flying high.
and then the broccoli in the corner had revealed itself like, oh, okay, so you really didn't eat it. I don't know who put that there.
And the entire scheme began to unwind.
That was like 7 or 8 years old version of Chris. And, so anyway, you live and learn, right? But I still hate broccoli.
That's correct. And that's exactly what we're talking about with a tune-up like this in week 1. If you need to tune up for a broccoli scheme, you got to get started early on. I bet you'd be better at that now than you were first time around. And I hope that Texas Tech will say the same about weeks 2, 3, 4, and whatnot. And I don't know, man, it may be like being force-fed a vegetable or something you don't like, but I never remember being force-fed anything with 950 drones flying above my head. Electric affair set for us at Jones Stadium. And don't forget about the 1,000-piece going band from Raiderland. I'm circling back to tubas in a minute, but first I got to circle back to what I said I was going to circle back to a minute ago. That's what they want to do offensively. They're saying they want to do it. They believe they can do it with what is on the outside. Now it's up to number 2 to go do it. We're talking about scoring from far. First, today's episode brought to you by Rugiet. Boys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to get Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is the next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify brain stimulation and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in only 15 minutes. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. So head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege and use our code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege, Rugiet.com/LockedOnCollege, and use our promo code LockedOnCollege for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. We're talking about scoring from far. Here's Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire.
Mac, you can ask him, but he talks about it all the time, of scoring from far, being more explosive. I think the 2 outside receivers especially are going to bring that into play. We were going through the depth chart, and, man, we're really long, have great size in every position of our skill when you're talking about the tight ends and the receivers. I mean, we're a pretty large group when you're talking about those guys.
Chris, they want to do it. He's discussing personnel they believe can do it. And we've seen before in the Behren Morton era times when he's available, he's tough, he's good between the years, but it has feel like it's been muted in a sense because for injury's sake or whatever's sake, maybe you couldn't dial that up all the time. So I think that's going to be one of the more interesting dynamics to kind of see whether he's in a position to do it, as they clearly think they can and they do want to.
We all want to do it, always.
Yes, we do.
Right? Yeah, I mean, people
bombs away.
Yeah. People always want to do it. You just, sometimes you're not as talented as you need to be able to do it. But
I think the Rugiet commercial was earlier.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. This is like one of those things. This sounds like Captain Obvious here when it comes to offense. When a new coach gets up in front of the media, it's like, we're going to be aggressive on defense. We're going to coach a bunch of downhill guys that just really get after you. And then the word explosive is always used when it comes to, relates to offense, right? So this is an obvious thing. This has been much like your inability to consistently have a player or players that could rush the passer over the last 15, 20 years, this has been a bit of a bugaboo here. The lack of explosiveness. Not that you haven't had big plays on offense, not that you haven't scored from far out, but doing it consistently, like where it's your identity, to where you like can legitimately hurt people and change a game on a dime. That is lacked. I remember before the Matt Millen said this to Cliff Kingsbury with me standing nearby in San Diego before the Holiday Bowl, and that would have been like, what was that, 2013? Was that right? Does that sound right?
Something along those lines.
They started that season out 7-0, and then ended up losing a bunch of games down the stretch. But you ended up playing a ranked Arizona State team in San Diego, and I remember him saying, "You know, Cliff, your team kind of plays in this 20-yard box," and Cliff was like, he like kind of took it personally, like, well, that's kind of like you're trying to take a shot, you're trying to be rude, and in many ways that has been fairly accurate if you explain Texas Tech offense large in part. Oh, now when Pat was here and you're throwing it all over the place to Jakeem Grant, or he's just scrambling around, and there were some explosive plays there, certainly. I'm just saying, on average, you've struggled to be able to do this. Just rear back, have time to protect, fire away, and you just got a guy just running, and it's a 63-yard touchdown pass. This is what this scheme and this skill set of players hopes to bring back to you regularly, and not just via the passing game. I think the running game too, because you've got guys that are explosive and have got legit speed. And yes, you're missing one of them, but Cam and Jacoby, it can be a house call anytime. I'm curious to see what this looks like. You will hit UAPB from longer than 40 yards out at some point, maybe multiple times Saturday night. That is going to happen.
It's crazy that we both had Matt Millen encounters, because I was at the stadium. I rode on an elevator with Matt Millen. I had just watched his A Football Life episode on NFL Network, where he delivered most of his interviews in overalls with no shoes. I complimented him on that fact on the elevator, was being sincere. I think he thought I was insulting him. He didn't know I grew up between Littlefield and Spade, Texas, America. That's right between the rock and the roll. And he didn't like that. I was really saying, like, hey, I think it's cool you're on national TV being profiled and you didn't put shoes on and wore overalls. That's hilarious to me. He did not seem to appreciate it. So I don't know. Matt Millen, I think, just a weirdo. Also a guy that drafted wide receivers, 5 years in a row? Great call, Matt. Something like that.
Yeah. And as soon as they got rid of him, the Lions started excelling. No shot.
Too much Matt Millen time already. That's my bad. But I just wanted to get into a Holiday Bowl memory with you for just a moment. Yeah, best laid plans, right? So hopefully some of those maybe come to fruition this time around. But it's going to take a quarterback that obviously feels good, in addition to time from an offensive line and guys that are explosive enough to actually get behind a defense. So we'll see if all that can come together. I think week one wise, you will be utilizing some fireworks, I believe, both figuratively and literally. So hopefully we see that play out. Something else we'll see play out, Chris, before I get out of here, I want to get to a couple of must-sees that are on my list. One does involve 1,000 musicians. The other involves what we thought maybe was going to come to fruition a couple of weeks ago, and that's John Curry listed as a starter at the star position. Sounds like there's going to be some variety to what he's asked to do, which is, I guess, no great surprise. But we're going to see this play out for the first time in week one to some extent. And I can't wait to see how it works out for John Curry at that spot defensively. Let's take another listen to Coach McGuire talking about that coming to be the way it is in week one.
We were a little banged up at safety. And so I think him going out there, and he's got a high football IQ, he's got a high care factor, not only for his teammates, for this university. And the one thing that I was so impressed is him tackling in space. You're going from the box, and I know the linebackers have to tackle in space, but it's just not as much space unless they're just running to the sideline. And so I was impressed with the way he tackled. and the way he committed to that position. And so he earned the right to start this week. You're going to see him play both positions. You're going to see him play inside, and you're going to see him play that star position because we are healthy. AJ and Dingle are back, and so we're going to get those guys going. But John has earned the right to start at that position, and so we put them in that spot, and he'll continue to play it depending on each week of personnel-wise how much we'll play him there, but we're definitely going to start him there.
Young guy, talented guy, local guy, so that makes him, must watch for me anytime. Knew he'd be on the field, but didn't have this on my bingo card, man. So I'm curious to see this.
He tried to tell us this, what was it, a couple weeks ago? Yeah. Like if this is someone that makes up their mind they want to go start or do this, then guess what? And here we are, 2 or 3 weeks later, and this is what's happened. This is a nod to how good of a camp he's had. He's a dude. He could play at a variety of different spots, and he will. But I think that this was trying to ensure, hey, we're going to reward this young man because he's one of our best 11 right now. So if this is what we need to do, then this is what's happening. But does he play full-time star? Is he a full-time starter? But don't get caught up into that because it's about like, okay, what personnel group do we start the game out in? And then, then we're immediately shuffling guys in and out. So it's just, that's the way some of it, but this was more of we're putting your name on the paper. I'm going to mention you and I'm going to say some things about you because you've earned this. That's what this is about, because he has, and he just is a really smart, athletic player that, and it's funny because I think there was a point to this. Joey was asked about who had the best camps or who, this and that. And he mentions John Curry was one, Sheridan Wilson was one, and Cam Dickey is one. The one thing that those guys have in common, and I think there was a point to what Joey is trying to prove here or to get across, is that these are all returners. Yes, the portal class was awesome, and I think people will see that. I think he's trying to let everybody know there was really good players that were coming back to play on this team too, and I'm gonna talk about some of them. And we've recruited pretty well around here because these are 3 players that all have multiple years left to play here. And in Cam Dickey's case, I think he's got 3 left to play. So I think that's worth, and I guess that's where I guess John Curry would too. That's just, I think there was and this is why Joey's good at what he does. It's subtle things like that I think he's just kind of saying hello without making a big deal about it. But there's a point that he's trying to make there. And I think that was the point he was trying to make. But I'm excited to see JC, Sheridan, and Dickey, for that matter. All of them. And it's part of that nucleus of culture guys that are going to kind of help maintain the level of this program, hopefully for years to come.
Would it be fair to say that you think when Curry's at the spot versus maybe later a McCarty or a Dingle that it changes the complexion of that position? Is it more of a situational look as a linebacker versus more of a DB, or am I reading too much?
McCarty does. I think Dingle and John are similar. However, Dingle is one of the fastest guys on the team. John is probably one of the smartest football guys on the team. Jacob Rodriguez probably, has that title. I just think of as far as like football IQ, but I think John is right there in that very short conversation. Whereas you're a little smaller, just as fast with AJ there. So I like it because you've got options. Yeah. And you hear Joey say we have some, we have some safety issues. So maybe AJ could rotate in at safety as well. You've got some position flex there with these guys. Hey, man, we got to talk about the tubas.
Well, I was going to say, if you're on the scene on Saturday night, you won't have any issue finding a French horn player of your liking or of any other variety, I suppose, because there's going to be 1,000 representatives celebrating 100 years of the Going Band from Raiderland. And that's just band alumni representatives. Of course, 60,000 and well beyond will be joining the Going Band and celebrating 100 years of the dulcet sounds of the South Plains. And of course, Coach McGuire was asked about this, and I'm sure you'll be shocked to hear he is enthusiastic about the band goings on.
Man, that just means we got more tubas. You know, I'm a huge tuba fan, and I can't wait to see how many tubas we have. That fires me up.
He's coming out of his seat over the tubas in the going band, Chris.
I mean, 950 drones. You've got 1,000 members of the band. I don't know if that's current and like former or what.
I think so.
Yeah, and is that right? They're doing maybe like a halftime show in the dark, like the nighttime where they used to make these famous.
I'd be happy to tell you that information, but I'd have to kill you, and I need the podcast to continue. So we'll just.
I've seen some mention of it by a band director on some of the social medias and some.
This was a thing once upon a time.
It was a big deal
back when we were allowed to party in a time known as the 90s.
That's right. But I'm here for. I mean, yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, the dude holding the tuba that's like marching out there, that's almost like bent like backwards, and the tuba's like almost touching the ground, and they're like, you know, and I mean all that stuff. Mad respect for those folks that
no doubt.
They're like looking up at the sky with that tuba holding on, but yet they're still maintaining balance and marching, and yeah, there you go. So
some of the greatest athletes, Chris. If you're just shy of the football roster, they usually send you to the tuba section. These big boys are out there working with great balance, athleticism, and agility, no doubt. Love the going band. Of course, maybe one of the things before you know what's going on, if you're either, say, a toddler or possibly a lady that's a newcomer to a football game, it could just be the band that you're there for. I remember very, very early on in my Red Raider life, huge deal. I still get the tingles watching the drum majors kick them back. Are they going to make it before the band collapses on them at midfield? You never know. That's part of the excitement. But they have so far every time. But I can't wait to see it again, Chris. Love the going band from Raiderland and all they bring, obviously, to the game. And Coach McGuire was very, very pumped about 100 years worth of these sounds and being represented in that fashion. And I have no surprise, you know, within me that he's down with the tubas, because I got to tell you, as a former trombone player, first chair, make no mistake, first chair, the trombones were seated near the baritone and tubas, in my experience. And this was definitely the outlaw section. This was the down and dirty section. This is probably including a few guys who had already been through the grade we were in a couple of times section. So to the trombones, the tubas, the baritones, you know, the foundation of any good band, a big salute from Locked On Texas Tech. Do you have a band pass real quick, Chris?
I was more of a Ron Burgundy jazz flute type guy, I guess. No, I don't. I have no concept. It's I don't put it. I think the last time I seriously played an instrument was when we were all required to in elementary, and they give you the recorder.
Yep.
There was just like the four. I just, yeah. I mean, Chris, it doesn't sound correctly. I know, Miss Bennell, I screwed it up. What do you want me to do?
Come on, Miss Bennell.
I've been trying to come up with broccoli hiding concoctions at home. I don't have time to practice on the recorder. But that's all my musical talents.
Okay, fair enough. Remember, Elvis's music teacher told him to quit too, but it's all right that you decided to devote your life and those lips to a utility of love only. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You knew what you wanted and went after it. Chris, appreciate the time today. Enjoyed it as always, my man. And we're inching another day closer to a real kickoff coming your way Saturday night. So we'll see you for the next one.
Absolutely. Keep hope alive, people. And we'll talk to everybody next time. Thank you so much for subscribing and listening to what we do here, man.
Yeah, God bless you if you made it this far. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Shout out to everybody that I know is still riding at this portion of the program. That's the everydayers always here. Thank you. And shout out to the Matador Mob as well. Hit the show notes and find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining. Speaking of an outlaw crew, probably a couple of baritone and tubas in there. Hit the show notes, find a link to a free 14-day trial if you're interested in joining. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text and straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.